Otherwise, they won't hear you. Okay. Now, there.
It's live. Oh, very live. We think this is everybody? Okay. Thank you all. We've been told this is too high for us, but we're going to just Dena, because it's being streamed, we want to use the mic. So now we will start officially. Thank you all for being here. We've already had people come up to us and share very helpful stories that we think maybe everybody should hear. But first of all, let me give a overview clarifying some things, because this is what we're hearing confusion about. When we ask you to say something when you experience or witness anti-Semitism, it may not seem rational. It's not like this is a rational situation. Our goal is to slow down what has become a very serious normalization of hate. That's what's been happening for the last 5+ years, and it will continue to happen unless every individual slows it down by calling it out. So if somebody, the situation that I encountered where I was not prepared, I'll share that with you because it's very illustrative. We were at the U of H main campus. They were having their Israel anti-apartheid week, and this young person comes running at me in my face, like this close, and yells at me, "Get off the sidewalk. You have no right to be on the sidewalk." And I went, "Huh?" And then she says, "Quit talking. You have no right to talk." And she's yelling in my face. And I went, "Huh?" Because I was in shock. It is a very shocking thing. Any form of hate hitting you in the face can be very shocking. And I was shut down. Now, she was well trained. She was trying to shut me down. That was what the point was. Fortunately, I had standing next to me an IDF soldier out of uniform. They were there for another program. And he said, "Young lady, could you calm down? You're upsetting this old woman." And I'm looking around for the old woman. I literally was like, and then I went, "Oh, that's me. Yeah, you're upsetting me." And she turned around and ran away. And that was the end of it. Then, interestingly, I had, like a moment later, a young man walked up to me who looked, I mean, this is stereotyping, but he looked Middle Eastern. And he said to me, "Why was she yelling at you?" And I said, "I don't really know. I think she was just trying to shut me down, but maybe you want to go ask her." And he said, "I will." And he walked across and asked her, and that was it. And he had a conversation with her. So he looked, you know, if I was going to stereotype, I'd say he looked Arab. And he went and had a conversation with this very, by the way, she was so white looking, it was sort of funny. She was playing kafia. You know, it's like dress up kafia. So I was not prepared in my head to even say, "What do you mean by that?" I had not practiced it enough. It is shocking when people come at you. That's why we want people to literally get in your head that you will say something when you see or experience anything like that. Now, the other caveat is, if you don't feel safe for whatever reason, then we don't want you to say anything, because safety comes first. But let's say you don't feel safe for whatever reason, we still want you to report it. If you can take a picture, if you can record something, that's helpful. But even if you can't, just reporting an incident will help in some measure, in some way, right? Okay, and again, it's about stopping the normalization of hate, because that's what we're facing long term unless we all stop it, right? It's not going to stop by itself. It's self-perpetuating because people get a kick out of it, or whatever they get. Say,
they get comfort.
They get, yeah. So, now, questions, comments, yes?
Is it the case that perhaps some years ago, people had these kind of feelings, or they had these antipathies towards Jews, but knew they weren't supposed to say anything, and now that you're free to say?
Right. It's become socially acceptable again. Yes, it has become socially acceptable. The crazy people came out from under the rocks. They've been set free, whatever you call it, yes. But again, that's why now it's normal to be hateful. And that's, yes, come on up. That's what we want to stop.
I think, though, at times people don't even know what they're saying. So it's become socially acceptable, but people don't really understand what they're saying how it's connected with anti-Semitism, which is one reason why we brought up our antisemitism.adl.org, because you can educate them as to, this is a long-standing anti-Semitic myth. It's not true, but people have built and built and built upon years of this, and people think it's something that everybody thinks, and it's not necessarily the case. So I think that's important to say. Sometimes people don't really even know what they're saying.
A lot of the people,
Go ahead.
sorry, a lot of the people who are saying from the river to the sea have no idea what river, have no idea what sea, don't know what what represents something very, very hateful. Again, it's correct, but they quit saying the rest of the sentence. And again, we don't want you to feel like it's your job to have to educate people, because that can be very painful and frustrating and so forth. But if you can call it out, like for example, if somebody says from the river to the sea, and you're like, do you know what that means? And they go, yeah, la la la. If already you've had enough, you can say, you know what? I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm just saying that's a hateful thing to say. And you're done, right? You don't have to keep going to suit ADL's needs. Yeah.
I want to say something too
Yeah.
about from the river to the sea. So, this is awkward, sorry. Did any of you read in yesterday's Chronicle, there was an opinion piece by one of the Chronicle, you read that one, Ruth? Did you?
What did they say?
Where they were talking about, it was a columnist who had written something, apparently was pro-Palestinian, I'm guessing. And she said she got a lot of response to it. And there was only one person who offered to talk with her about it, a gentleman from Katy. You're nodding your head, so you read that. And so the gentleman from Katy and she spoke, and she reprinted parts of their conversation. I thought it was great that she did that. And the last comment was about from the river to the sea, and he was saying, a lot of students on college campuses are chanting from the river to the sea. He said, so my question to them is, what river and what sea? And if they can't answer that, then they've lost me. So they're back to my point about a lot of people don't know what they're talking about or what they're saying. They don't even know. They're just in lockstep with what they think needs to be done. It's admirable they think that some people are underdogs and need to be advocated for. However, they don't really know what they're advocating for. They're just advocating. So it's important to have that kind of information, and I thought that gentleman's statement was a great response to that. Name the river and name the sea. Well, I don't know which river and sea. Well, then you've lost me here. You really don't know what you're talking about. Go back and do some research.
Yes.
You used an expression that made me reflect a little bit where we stand, what history has shown us. And I just wanted to challenge that, not because I don't want to believe what it is, because I feel it defeated. You said to stop normalization. Jews have spent thousands of years trying to stop normalization.
Yeah,
It keeps coming out back and back.
I said,
So are we stopping or just reacting?
I said slow it down once, and then I realized sorry. He was referring to the phrase stopping the normalization of hate, saying Jews have been facing hate for centuries. And I'm sorry, I used the term stop once. We usually say slow it down, right? Stopping it would be wonderful. We would love to be out of a job. That would be great. Yeah. But in the meantime, it's not going to happen. And like you say, it never really has been the case. But slowing it down, because really, like personal like cancer, but personal interactions really do make a difference. There are people who go, I didn't realize, I didn't know. And even if not, so I teach the 8th graders this class, and used to be many of them, when we would talk about what do you do when you experience or witness hate, they would say, I ignore it, it's stupid, it'll go away. And that used to be a common response. It's become less so in the last few years because they're experiencing so much more of it. But there was always some student who would say, no, you can't ignore it. If you ignore it, it just comes back and gets worse, which is the case. We have a teaching tool that we share in the workshop called the Pyramid of Hate. Anybody seen that one? Okay, right. A pyramid of hate, it points out how at the bottom of the pyramid are stupid remarks, quote unquote, stupid remarks, slurs, whatever.
Name calling.
Yeah, name calling. But each level gets worse and worse and worse, the top being genocide. And that is how it goes. Thankfully, it doesn't get to genocide very often. But this was the path that the Nazis took. They start at the bottom, and if nobody stops them, you just keep moving up. So thankfully, even 8th graders today are more aware that you can't just ignore it, that it won't go away, that you have to do something. And some student has, usually every year somebody will point out, yeah, if you're a Jew and they say something anti-Semitic and you don't say anything, then any non-Jew watching goes, oh, that Jew didn't even mind, so that's not a problem. I can say that, normalizing the hate more. So thankfully, 8th graders at least are getting the message more clearly that you can't think it'll stop if you don't do something. But again, if you don't feel safe, we don't want people, students do feel personally threatened for good reason. And if they feel like they're going to get more hate because they stand up to somebody, then we want them to go through us. And well, I'll tell you the worst case that I've had in the last few years from one of my students. 4 years ago, an 8th grader said, at Pin Oak, said, yeah, yesterday the teacher in English, who was a long-term substitute, said, all the Jews stand up. Some of you may know about this. It's pretty bad. And there were, thankfully at Pin Oak, there's more than a few Jews, so like 3 or 4 kids stood up. And then she said, okay, I want everybody to know that the real victims of the Holocaust were the German people. Now you all sit down. And they're like looking at each other, right? What is this? Thankfully, when she's telling this in class, and I said, have you told your parents? She goes, no. They'll just get upset. I said, well, we need to get upset. That's really, there was more to it too. But thankfully, I knew her father, and we talked, and he reported it to ADL, and then we were able to go in and work with the administration. And that teacher was fired, which we
don't advocate.
Right, we can't dictate what a school would do. What do you think would be a better solution than just firing a teacher? Well, education for the teacher, and what about all the students who heard that said?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, a school is, yes. Oh,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. Did she write? She's only been there 25 years. because that's not considered socially acceptable, right, right.
Don't assume what I would say. I'm taught in an area with lots of Jewish students. I mean, she just kept making it worse. So I said, well, I'd like the letter back. She handed it to me, and the ADL handled it. They called the administration, and a letter was put in her,
She was put on notice. She never talked to you about it, right? Right.
But stuff went on in the whole year. They literally had a file with stick for 2 years of elementary school. And my fourth grader's coming home, Mommy, I need to talk to you, but please don't call the ADL. It was so
And that's what happens with students. They do get retribution for things. That's why it's so tricky.
it was stupid. It was ignorant stuff.
But it sounds like she just kept digging herself in.
Well, she didn't do it. It was stuff that went on in the classroom with the teachers, I'm sure, were
I mean, with students, other things.
that this is not right. They put stuff out at Christmas,
Right.
and then, at one point it was Christmas plexers, and my kid was the plexer king of the classroom, and he had a Muslim friend. And she said, oh, y'all can be so excited, we're doing Christmas lectures today. And Noah said he looked at his friend, they looked at each other, it was like, oh, Lord. And she looks at Noah, and I guess it looked like deer in the headlights, she goes, oh, Noah, I'm so sorry, will this offend you? And he said, I looked around the classroom and I thought, yes, this offends me, this is against the Constitution.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Right.
And he said, but Mommy, I couldn't say
No.
anything because they all hate me.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's even high school kids have that kind of experience where they don't want to be labeled. We can all understand that. That's right. Which is why, again, if you report it and it goes from the ADL level down, an individual student doesn't ever have to be targeted because it can be anonymous. Yes, sir. Thank. Oh.
Well, my go-to is two different things, two different scenarios. I'm a special ed advocate. Dena and you and I have talked in the past, Louis and I have in the past. My go-to situation is if I have something going on, I will report it. One of the schools that I, one of the clients that I see, I will report it to ADL, but my go-to is I go to the Office of Civil Rights. I don't play games.
Right.
It's straight to the Office of Civil Rights and that's it.
Right. And by the way, the federal government now is very seriously investigating at the college level. I think they're doing.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
Let me
Yeah.
speak to that.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I just got a call last week from someone in the Department of Justice who wants to meet with us and go to Rice University with us. So they reached out to us. Department of Justice, yeah, the U.S. Attorney's Office and so on.
They're the ones doing the investigation.
Yeah, somebody wanted us to tell you a little bit about our relationship with law enforcement. So ADL has a really good relationship with law enforcement. It's one of the few civil rights agencies that has a really good relationship with law enforcement. We train law enforcement officers on hate crimes.
Every HPD officer here from Dena.
Yeah, we're doing a hate crimes class right now for all the HPD officers. In fact, on Monday I'll be doing one for about 100 people. But anyway, that's one of the things that helps. And so we do have a long-standing relationship with the Department of Justice, and they reached out to us. So, yeah.
Really would like to hear where that goes because if DOJ is involved, I want to know when the political ransom that
Well, they're doing.
Okay. Okay.
What is happening in our local campuses? We hear about things that are ignored.
Some of the same things are happening on some of the campuses. So we've had, there have been encampments, quote encampments. I don't think they've allowed them to stay overnight, but I guess they pitch a tent for the day on the University of Houston campus, on the Rice campus. Students for Justice in Palestine used to be very active at the University of Houston. the SPJ chapter at Rice University got extremely active right before October 7th, so beginning of the school year. They actually were able to convince Rice Pride to drop its association with Hillel, because Hillel International has a thing where they don't allow speakers who support BDS, so they broke off any relationship with Hillel. And Hillel was one of the more welcoming, was the only religious welcoming organization for Rice Pride. But there also, South Texas College of Law has an active SPJ chapter that's been, some of the people involved have posted some very scary things. What we're doing as far as that's concerned locally, our regional director has met with President DeRoche of Rice, and we're trying to work on ongoing relationship. I talked about the Department of Justice wanting to go to Rice University. We haven't had a lot of meetings with UH, although I believe that Mark, our regional director, has talked to some Jewish professors there. So we're trying to be helpful as much as we can. We've also had some listening sessions with students from both campuses, all of whom have said that they feel, and not all of them were Jewish either. They're connected with Hillel in some way. So Rabbi Weiss at Hillel connected us with these students, and they all say they feel much less comfortable on campus than they, after October 7th, than they did before. A lot of the Jewish students we've communicated with have lost their Muslim friends. Their Muslim friends don't talk to them anymore. So they feel isolated in that way. So they're suffering, you know, they're suffering. They don't feel comfortable wearing a Star of David, a lot of them. They don't feel comfortable wearing a kippah. They don't, you know, they're Jewish. They don't hide their Jewish identity completely, but they feel compelled to be more careful about it. But this has been going on. Lisa and I have talked to them, what was it, like 5 or 6 years ago, and it was the same thing.
Yes,
It's just gotten
at
worse.
Rice
U of
did not
H.
used to have the problem. Oh, sorry. U of H has had the problem for a long time because they have an active Israel Apartheid Week, if nothing else. Rice had never complained about anything until this fall, and now they also feel unsafe.
And South Texas.
And South Texas, first, yeah. Yes. It's a good question, and thankfully there's a pretty direct answer. We would never say don't go to a school because they're having anti-Israel activity, because somebody said, well, so-and-so is not having anti, so I'm going to go there. I'm like, they could have it next week. There's no reason to think this one's better than that one. What we want kids to do is make sure they will have a support system wherever they go, which technically would mean a good Hillel or something equivalent, because obviously it can happen anytime, and you need to have support. You need to have other people to work with you. So that's the answer. Just make sure you know where your Jewish support will be. Yeah.
What about the alumni organization?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's not every college. So far they've done, I think, 85 so far. They hope to extend it. What you want to understand about the report card, again, is it's a reflection of the trouble. We've had complaints from some Hillels saying, but you didn't give us credit. It's like, it's not about the Hillel, it's about what the problems are. But the solution is to make sure that there is a good, strong, organized Jewish community wherever you would want your kid to be. They're working on it. I mean, they said they were going to. I don't know.
They haven't yet.
They haven't yet, but that's the goal.
And it's just a moment in time. It's
Right.
not-
It could change. Yeah. But again, it's to clue people in and to say, make sure you know where your support comes from. Debbie, and then we'll go around again.
So, one of your criteria is a strong hill. Another one is, does the university have policies with regard to?
They all have policies. It's what they do with them. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, some policies are better than others, but yeah.
is there a place that you can go?
Fine. Yes.
So who would be in a position to influence whether a university creates such
The policy? Is that, yeah. Well,
The Board of Trustees?
yes,
Parents, alumni?
right. There is an organization, we can make this recommendation to you. There's an organization called Alums for Campus Fairness. If you Google that, you'll find them. They are taking, like I registered, they put down my alma mater, and anytime something's happening there, they've emailed me and said, please contact President Salovey and send this letter. So it's very specific. They've been around for 10 years, but they're really ramping up now. So Alums for Campus Fairness, Google that, and that's one, so we can all do that. That's a nice little effect we can all have, right? Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, we were going this way, yes.
They didn't have a religious, they had religious studies, but they didn't have anything about Judaism,
Right.
which is a relatively young department. Are they being attacked?
Not that we've heard.
There's, no, not that department.
Not the department.
Some professors are.
Yeah,
but not
individual
that
professors, not the Jewish Studies program. Right. Some, well, but they've spoken up and
At least
gotten.
one Jewish professor
right.
has filed a couple of incident reports
Right.
with us.
Yes.
I attended the session that Audit, one thing that was mentioned was a training, was working in campus communities to help with that. Wow.
Well, the Federation brings in Israelis every
Yeah,
year
that's not us.
to interact with campuses and the high schools and everything. So this year there were 2, and they brought in a 3rd for the Maccabi games. So those people are available through Federation if you wanted that kind of contact. And we don't work with them directly, but we know them and we support what they're
One of them is
doing.
in GLI.
Yes, that's right. So that's something good to tell you about. The Glass Leadership Institute is our young leadership program, but I think it goes through age 45 or something.
Yeah.
It's not that young. But if you know somebody in the age range of 25 to 45, please recommend them for this program. It's a great program. It's a year long, and they meet once a month to learn about ADL's work and how they can be involved in it. And it's a wonderful program. And
Culminates in our National Leadership Summit, which is a national convention. Never is Now also.
yeah, it's just a great program, both for ADL and for the people partaking of it. And anybody can nominate somebody, or you can tell the individual you think should do it and get in touch with us. So that's another way to just get more ADL information out to people. Yes. Yes. Yes, and that was a main goal of it. Some colleges complained. Just so you know, before any of that was published, the ADL staff shared the data with the colleges. This wasn't supposed to be a surprise attack. They saw the data in advance. They had a chance to update it, and then ADL put it out there. But I don't know how many, but yes, a number of universities are contacting ADL, and of course, that's the goal, to meet with us and then see what they can do about it. Yeah, that's happening. I don't know what percentage, but it's
I don't either.
happening. And that's the goal, yeah.
Now, my question around this with the high schools, I can make it more personal. My wife and I were sponsoring the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Portugal to provide
Oh,
an annual
Training,
yeah, we know what you're going to say.
Holocaust
Yeah.
remembrance awareness.
And they canceled it.
They canceled.
Yeah.
just this year?
In the beginning they said we are going to reschedule
Right.
just this year.
Did we get involved in that?
Yeah.
I heard about it happening.
The other thing is, I don't know if you heard what happened in the fair.
With the yearbook.
With the yearbook, and then we opened the doors for other vendors, and we are creating like a vicious cycle that I do not know how it will stop.
You're right.
With the Holocaust Museum, yes, we know about that. We received an incident report on it, And when they said they were going to reschedule it, we took them at their word. But you tell me that they haven't rescheduled it, so we probably need to revisit that and go back to the person who filed the report.
They scheduled another event in the Holocaust Museum, but not that.
Yeah, I can fill you in later. They did come to meet with the 8th graders on this specific Holocaust curriculum reading. They did not come back to the original presentation we spoke about hate, but they did do an in-house presentation on hate, which does include here a bit of hate. And they had it done in-house instead of allowing the Holocaust Museum to come, and I believe the reason the whole thing was canceled is one specific parent made a big stink about it. And I think the principal was trying to not be on the news, was our impression, and was trying to, so they did an in-house presentation, and they did allow the speakers to come to meet with the 8th graders, but not the whole.
Okay, so it wasn't that it just was dropped.
It wasn't dropped completely, well, it was dropped, but the Holocaust Museum created their own. And I think they, because this parent was saying the Holocaust Museum was,
The complaint that we got said that someone complained, a parent or parents complained that the Holocaust Museum was a Zionist terror organization or some outrageous thing like that.
I think it was one specific parent, who I don't know who it is, but anyway, they did it in-house instead. So it's been,
So they didn't have anything from the Holocaust Museum. You said that they had a separate event.
they did not have the initial presentation done.
Right.
However, separately, they had the Holocaust Museum come to meet with the 8th graders about the Holocaust meeting that they were doing. The other presentation was supposed to be for all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, a specific presentation against hate. They did not have that.
Okay, and they did an in-house thing instead. Okay. As far as Bel Air, yes, we're aware of what's going on at Bel Air.
They don't know.
Well, I mean, what?
Okay, now go home and read the Herald Book.
No, just they don't know what the incident was.
Oh, you don't know what the incident was?
Right.
Oh, the Bel Air High School yearbook, and Bel Air's high school yearbook is not the only one, had a page that was an account from, quote, an Arab student who was talking, she was talking about her life after October 7th, how it affected her, that sort of thing. That page is the only page I've seen. I don't know if there are other accounts of people's lives since, in the past year. Have you seen the yearbook?
I was told by somebody that that's the only page of its kind. Is that what you're commenting on?
I was going to say that the comment that upset everybody is she said, and then October 7th happened. What happened?
No, I know, but
Yes.
Were
but
there other accounts?
I don't think
we're
so.
trying to figure out whether there were other accounts that were similar, not about October 7th necessarily, but say is there a student who's Ukrainian American talking about the war between Russia and Ukraine, things like that. Because if there were other things like that, then there's a context for it. At this point, we don't know. Our regional director has spoken with the principal. He's spoken with the incoming PTO president. I'm not sure where that stands now. He happens to be out of town at his daughter's college graduation. So I don't know what the situation is there, but we know about it and we know what's going on. Yes, I dealt.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I got that. I spent all day yesterday working on it.
It said, what was the best event this year?
Right.
And the kids wrote, Halloween or whatever. One kid wrote,
No, they didn't just write Halloween. One person wrote about the deaths of people in submarines. I'm not sure how any of that was put on that page. That seems a bit odd.
so it said the best events of the year, and the kids wrote, what happened on October 7th?
Right.
So I'll tell you what we know about that. The page was talking about, they asked the question, what was your favorite event or trend of the past year? And the 12th grader said something like, oh, I like the fashion show. It's that's the kind of thing you expect in a high school yearbook. Then there was a quote about the submarines. Then another kid said something about MMA fighting. And the 9th grader response was, or the quote that they put in was, the Israeli-Hamas war because of how it started. Now that kid could have been Jewish. We don't know.
But it doesn't really belong in the yearbook anyway. We don't.
His name was Nicolas Rodriguez.
Yes. Yes.
But there are Hispanic Jews. So we don't know. We're trying to figure out more about this one. Our education director, Dr. Henderson, has spoken or has communicated with the principal. The principal sent out a message to parents that they didn't mean for it to be hurtful, that the question was not the question that was put into the yearbook. It was a different question. It was a longer question, which provides a little bit more context, but we're working on trying to respond to that too. We need to investigate it fully before, we come down hard on them. I kind of feel a little bit sorry for the ninth grader because I think he was asked a question, he answered the question, and now he's in this humongous firestorm of controversy that he didn't expect. So, but we're working to try to make sure that we have the best possible outcome. And already, Chantel, Dr. Henderson, our education director, has said to the principal, she read his response, and she said, that puts it in better context, but it doesn't address the hurt that this caused. So we're working on trying to address that. In the meantime, ADL tries to provide a measured response where we investigate fully what's going on. We're not going to knee-jerk, but there are people in the community who also are doing their own thing, so they're responding in their own way, and perhaps that will be, you'll probably hear more about that than what we do, because we try to work a little bit behind the scenes because sometimes that works better. So. Yes, and we're looking into that too.
It wasn't very good for these.
The yearbook asks the question, in the yearbook it was printed, what is your favorite trend or event of the year? And a ninth grader said,
Right, they heard that part.
you heard that part?
Yeah.
What did I? Yeah.
It's like so many universities. If they took proactive steps to avoid these things happening, it wouldn't be happening. But they don't have, they clearly don't have good imaginations. They're not thinking about what's going to happen given whatever.
I guess the question was, what was the most significant event?
Even that
was
yeah,
part of it.
even that could, well, but
Right. That was,
Right.
according to the principal, that was in the question. What was
Right.
the most significant? Yeah.
but that you still don't want that.
Fashion shows who ought to be.
But you still don't want the answer to be hateful. And I have,
We don't know that it was.
well,
We don't know.
no, correct. It has a hateful impact. We talk about intent versus impact with things like anti-Semitism and other forms of hate. It may not be intended to be hateful, but if the impact is to cause pain, then that's the impact. That's one of those times, again, where with your response, you can make a distinction sometimes and say, I don't think you meant that to be hurtful, but it is because. I wanted to give you one other perspective that I always share with students, and that's about white supremacy, because white supremacy and white nationalism are behind so much of the violence that's happening in our country right now, Christian nationalism in particular. And I have some students who, again, feel like that's not their problem. They don't want to get involved. So I always clarify. I say, first, I want to make sure they understand what white supremacy is. It's the belief that whites are superior and therefore should rule the world. And then I say, so are Jews white? And most of the kids sitting in that class are going to look white. And they go, they're like, yes. And I say, well, do you think white supremacists think you're white? And then some of them go, you mean they don't? So we want to be clear. White supremacists say Jews cannot be white, no matter what, which is just the answer that we need to have about, because then I say, so whose side are you on? Some of us can pass as white. Whose side are you on?
If they think Jews are white, they should have Megiddi's nieces in Israel, whose family's from Iraq.
Yes.
To see whether they're white.
Yes. Well, even in my classrooms at Kehila High, there are not. Yeah, but there are non-Jews, I mean, there are non-white Jews in my classes. And just so you know, roughly 15% of American Jews consider themselves Jews of color. It's 1 million Jews in our country who consider themselves Jews of color. It's not just skin color. Correct.
It's because by definition,
Heritage.
we couldn't be white because we're other.
You mean the white supremacists? Yes, exactly. Exactly. But even so, obviously, with students and adults, it can seem confusing. And I always just say, make it clear whose side you're on. If you could pass as white, are you gonna when you're dealing with white supremacy? The answer obviously needs to be no. And then the question is, so how are you gonna show whose side you're on? And it's by how you act and what you say, right? And if we're not fighting white supremacy, if we are, for example, fighting with other minority groups, we are in effect helping white supremacists. We're doing their work for them. That's what they want, minorities to fight each other, because that's their goal, one of their goals. Yes, sir?
How long is this supposed to go?
I'm not sure. How long does this typically go? As long as we want? Well, then let's say 15 more minutes to be fair to everybody's time. That sound right? Yes, ma'am.
No, I wanted to ask if the ADL or the Federation or whoever it is has a program to go into high schools, at least the Jewish high schools, if not the public high schools, and to have a program with the students in the high school to prepare them before they go to college.
Yes. That is my job, and I try very hard to get into the schools. Sometimes they don't return my calls, and I never know why, but that's what we're always working on. Last year I never give up. Never. Last year I did all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders at Emory Weiner. This year they didn't call me back to do 6th grade, but they say they're going to call me back to do 6th and 7th next year. Whatever. Barron Academy, I have a contact there. I have been there in the past, but right now they're...
But you teach it at Kehila High.
I teach at Kehila High. All the Kehila High kids get it. But I'm right now being, I think the word is ghosted by Barron Academy. So I just need some, and again, I have done it there before. I don't know what is stopping it, but that is our goal. That is our goal. Yes, sir.
This is a bigger question. It's not enough. It's not enough against the ADL.
Thank you.
Really not. But if similar scenarios, similar type of slurs were made to people in the black community
Right.
versus the type of slurs that we're seeing in the Jewish community at throats and
Yeah.
whatever. How is it? I see that the black community is far more aggressive in dealing with that and shoving it down from margins to whatever. And we're a lot more, we're a lot more lower key dealing with it. I'm not saying that we eradicate racial
Yeah.
racism,
Right.
but it seems like that is, but you're going to get a lot more head shakes. Oh yeah, that's racism
Well,
versus oh yeah, that's
I think the real difference right now is that the other forms of hate are more socially cut down. Anti-black, anti-Asian, that's still not considered.
Necessarily true.
It varies, but yeah.
I think it depends on who it is.
Right. Go ahead. That's yours.
I think it depends on who it is, how they respond. I don't think it's more socially acceptable to hate Jews than it is anybody else. I think, Lisa's point is hate is unacceptable no matter who it's aimed at.
I think part of our problem is that if you look at the standard categories of ethnicity or whatever it's called in the Civil Rights Act, where we filled out this form, all of us, a zillion times. And your choices are white, Hispanic, black, Asian, other. When I came to this country in 78, I went to a National Science Foundation conference, and I was given the standard form. And I was new in the United States, and I saw these categories, and I checked other. And you could put a comment on what you mean by other, so I put Jewish. And I was told you're not allowed to do that. Jews are part of true that Jews, going back to the 1920s, vied to become considered part of the white community
Right.
because they thought it was safer to be called white
Right.
than to be called a minority.
Right.
What we're learning now is we're better off standing up for ourselves as a minority than assuming that we're white.
Protected. Yeah, that wasn't true back then, but yes. A little more mixed. White. Go for other if
Put
you
down
want.
whatever you want to put down, I think.
I mean, if you
Yeah.
don't consider yourself white, then put other. Yeah.
You pointed out how important it was that minorities don't fight against minorities. Well, what are Jews supposed to do when the intersectionality dissects us?
It's
Respond,
complicated,
explain.
but still not. Okay, so
Again, it's individuals too. It's not the entire, group of whatever you're talking about.
I recently called out a Jewish organization because in an email, it's an organization I support, and then in an email they were complaining about the ADL doing something that was not bad. They just didn't like it, but they're calling it out in this very public national way. And I wrote back saying, do you really want to be part of Jewish organizations fighting Jewish organizations, especially now? Can't you find a constructive way to do this? So if even Jewish organizations are fighting Jewish organizations, this is not going to help anything. It's so contrary to what we need to be doing, and the same with other minority groups. It's not that we have to agree, but there are better and worse ways to disagree and to be constructive as opposed to destructive. If we can think about it as every opportunity is, you can go either way. Well, find the constructive way. Find the way that's going to make it get better if we're dealing, especially if we're dealing with other minority groups, because that's where we really want to build up and not tear down.
Well, I think we've talked a lot about anti-Semitism on the right, which is very much more likely to be violent.
Absolutely.
Hurt us physically.
Yes.
But anti-Semitism on the left basically pervades northeastern campuses, and it's faculty hire faculty who think like them, and we're on the intellectual grandchildren of the people who invented settler colonialism and intersectionality and those kinds of things. And it goes without saying that Israel is the prime example of settler colonialism.
You're saying that's what they say. Oh, okay.
No, that's what the person who invented the term
Oh,
said.
yes. Okay. But that's because, again, they don't know their history and they don't know their
No,
terms.
he does.
Well,
He just has
he's
his
just
way of
anti-Semitic. Okay.
No. He's not prejudiced. He has what we think is a horrible point of view, but it's his. And there are many people who agree with him more and more.
Okay.
Honest to God.
No, I hear you. My understanding of the terms are that Israel's not a settler colonialist because most of the people who settled were refugees. That means they're not colonialists.
Say that till the
Right.
cows come
Okay.
home, but
Right.
you're not at Yale or
No,
Harvard.
I understand what you're saying. Well,
went to Yale.
yeah, I did.
I
But
know.
I'm just saying that twice that if you're going by definitions, technical definitions, then they're wrong. But you're saying that's not what matters because they're propagating it and they're sharing it with the people who also believe it.
As far as they're concerned.
Yes.
People who are not indigenous,
Well, but we are.
you can say that.
But they say we're not. Right. Right. Okay.
The goats come home.
Well, this is
What's the point?
the point.
This is
what we're up
profound and
against.
strongly held belief
Yes.
by, I'm sorry to say, many people in social sciences departments, Middle Eastern studies departments.
But Debbie, you know what? It's akin to Holocaust denialism. It's the same kind of thing.
Yes, but
PhDs who write books
Here's
about
the
that.
case, and I don't think we should minimize it at all.
Oh, we're
And
not.
I've spent a lot
Yes.
of time saying what you're saying. Don't, settle with colonialism.
Yes.
That's ridiculous. But it's part of a thing now which is
Yes.
bigger than we are.
Okay, and maybe the biggest problem is there are Jews, especially Jewish students, who are believing it because they want to be part of a progressive movement that believes it. And again, I mean, it's how you define terms. It's how educated you are about the terms and the history. We may never convince some people, but I guess what I would like to say, and what ADL is certainly trying to do, is to make sure that the facts are available, and we're trying to get them out there, particularly to Jews. ADL has collaborations with Hillel, with 25 different organizations. We have a new collaboration with Chabad, yes, and so we're trying to make sure that the information is clear and accurate and available, and we're sharing it. You know, all I say is I wish we'd done this 5 and 10 years ago, then we wouldn't be in this position now, but you just never, who would have ever expected what we're dealing with now, right? So as much as I wish we'd done differently, yeah. So going forward, if you've never been to ADL.org, I don't think I've seen half of what's at ADL.
Oh, God,
it's
there's no way.
amazing. There's so much good information. So please get a little familiarity with it if you can, so that you can share it with more people. And especially the education aspect of it, right. But it feels like an endless job, right? We're always playing catch up. We're always responding. We're trying to be proactive, but there's so much that's hitting all the time. Like Dena's work, she'd love to be more proactive, but she's always dealing with things that come in every day. But that's why we ask every person to become, in effect, an ambassador, an advocate about all this, to stand up for it, to call it out, to report it. Because if every Jew did that, we really would make a huge impact. It really will make a difference. So just never think you're just one person, you know, don't do that thing where I'm just one person, it doesn't make any difference. We have to have every person doing this, and it will make a difference. It is making a difference. Certainly students who go through our program, and let's see, we just agreed we're going to do the Words to Action for the Women's Study Group, I think, okay. And Rabbi Teller said he'll schedule one for the congregation at large. That just gives you the tools, again, to feel comfortable doing what needs to be done, because it can feel overwhelming. We don't think it's necessarily, you know, easy.
Yeah.
It's a thing. But please, any organization that could use the workshop, well, I'll do it for 5 people. I don't care. We just want people to get the tools to know the situation and know what to do about it. So let's get that workshop out there more. And we haven't scheduled it yet. We're gonna, but I'll schedule it for anybody, anytime, pretty well, almost anybody. Anytime. We'll make it happen. But you know, practice yourself. Get something in your head that you'll be prepared to say. Because I can't tell you, if you haven't experienced it, how much it can shock you it's just shocking. So be prepared and share the info and get the workshop scheduled for more groups. And that's how we slowly are going to start slowing down the hate and flip it the other way.
A big key is really the education.
Yes.
The history and to know what to answer.
Yes. Yes. You have to be ready.
You don't know what to say.
Yeah, and I feel so bad for students who are hearing things from their professors and their friends, Israel this, Israel that, and they just don't know. I also ask my students, what have Jews done to deserve anti-Semitism? Right? And some of them go, what have we done? Right? I mean, you know, they don't know. They're not, we need to make clear, that's not how it works. You didn't do anything. So that's part of what the workshop is about. And we want to get it out there more. Yes?
Go to allies as well, or just Jewish groups?
We can do it for, I've never done it for a totally non-Jewish group. We welcome Jews and non-Jews if the non-Jews identify as an ally. Yes. Yeah, it works fine that way. Like when we do it at Emory Wiener, not all the Emory Wiener students are Jewish, and it works just fine. That's fine. Yeah. I guess, no, it is meant for Jewish groups, but it can include non-Jewish allies.
But ADL does other
Oh, yes, we have other programs for totally non-Jewish groups. Yeah, yeah. But yes, yes. Yeah, sure. We'll speak anywhere. We'll do anything. I have been trying for a year to get into the JSU at Bel Air High School. The rabbi just called me back now that school's ending this year. So No Place for Hate is our all-school public school program, which we try and again, our director of education works very hard. There are 260 some odd schools this year that are No Place for Hate schools. So, I mean, I would do a presentation on this for a
They just
school,
have to
but
ask us.
right.
So we have that club at Lanier, my daughter.
Yes.
Place for Hate.
Yes.
Do you guys,
That's
that club and the presentations they do are kind of related?
yes, they're more about the general anti-hate, anti-bullying. But again, if a school asked us to come in and do a presentation about this, we would gladly do it. We don't have a conduit exactly for that, but
Is that club started by ADL?
No Place for Hate is an ADL program, right?
It's not
It's bigger than a club, kind of. It's,
yeah. It
But
might
if-
be a club on the Lanier
right, they make it a
campus, but
club. Well, you have a
They
steering
have
group.
some sort of
Yeah,
committee,
yeah. No Place for Hate is it's an ADL program. Yes. Yes, and then she can, yep, yes, right. So No Place for Hate was started as an anti-bullying organization, program primarily, but it is about stopping hate, and it's a wonderful,
promoting respect.
and promoting respect. It's a wonderful program.
Yeah.
For No Place for Hate, sure. Whatever, as many as will take us, we can't
We don't,
force
well,
it.
we don't know. I
Yeah,
can't
I'm not
tell
sure.
you. Chantel would be able to tell. Our education director
We have
can
a
tell you,
list.
because it varies from year to year. It's only a year-long program.
Right, they have to sign up
They have
again
to
every year.
continue it. Because you can have No Place for Hate. First of all, it's not a panacea.
Right.
It's not going to cure everything.
Right.
But it gives the tools to students to fight hate and prejudice. However, students change, teachers change, administrations change. So you have to get the designation every single year.
And it requires 3 programs on fighting hate. That's what the No Place for Hate program requires. But you have to have a sponsor in the school, and the principal has to sign up.
And a club or committee.
Right, a group.
students.
They're supposed to have a student-parent organization to support it. It's a great program. So yeah, that's another thing to advocate for that in any school. It's very, the responses from the counselors. I mean, I've read a lot of the feedback, and they literally say the program resulted in bullies coming and saying, I don't want to be a bully anymore. I mean, it's really, they're very powerful. And it equally, it gets other students to say, I now know how to stand up when I see somebody being bullied. It's great programming. So please encourage No Place for Hate at every school. Is it time? Yes, 1:30, it's time. Scott does.
Scott.
I just want to invite everyone, tomorrow night is Becky Shore at 7 p.m. There is this program for the Israeli fallen soldiers for Memorial Day, Yom HaZikaron, for the Israeli fallen soldiers. It's in Becky Shore. You have to register. They advertise it all over on the website. And please come tomorrow night.
Thank you.
And here, I'll.
7 p.m. So be there at 6:30 because it takes time for the security. Don't bring the backpacks because the security is really tight. So please come. Be part of
Yes.
it. Tomorrow night at 7.
2001.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, please come forward. I have my business card if you wanted to